Thanks. Hey, good morning. What a great turnout. I'm really psyched about this. So welcome to the 2011 Access Fund National Access and Stewardship Conference Summit meeting. I'm Brady Robinson, Executive Director of the Access Fund. And I just want to thank everybody for coming. I know some of you traveled far and wide to get here. And obviously this conference wouldn't be anything without your presence and expertise and contributions, but even more importantly, the Access Fund wouldn't really be anything without your presence and expertise and all your hard work. The only way we can have as much of a national reach as we do is with so many volunteers that are dedicated all around the country. So I just want to thank you all for showing up. So the few thank yous are in order. First of all, Cliff Bar is here in the house. I was just out at their national headquarters earlier this week and have to say it was very impressive to see how big of a company they are. I had no idea how many Cliff Bars they sell in the country, but they sell a lot. They must. And today is their day of action, which is part of their Meet the Moment campaign, and they were very generous in funding this conference and have been very generous in funding a number of our initiatives over the years and continue to do so. So know that they are truly a company that doesn't just make great food, but they really do walk their walk. They treat their employees really well. Super cool company. So just want to thank everybody. Yeah. I want to thank the Colorado Mountain Club. Is Katie Blackett? I didn't see her this morning. This is a great space. The Colorado Mountain Club donated it. Each kind of tenant gets to donate the space to one person each year, and they chose us this year. So this whole space was donated. The American Alpine Club is also in this space, and Phil Powers will be here, I think, with us tomorrow morning, and hopefully he'll say a few words. But thanks to the CMC, and thanks to all the presenters and workshop leaders. A lot of you have been putting a lot of time and energy into this, and Joe's probably been working on you to get your presentations in on time. Joe's good at that. So thanks to you, and thanks to the Louder Than 11 crew. I am being videoed as I speak right now, and so it's good. Hopefully it'll it's going to increase and reduce anxiety. It may increase your anxiety in that when you're talking, this thing's going to be on the internet. It's like, if you do a good job, it's like a TED Talk. It could go viral. So think about that. You could be talking to thousands and thousands of people. You never know. On the other hand, when I'm at a conference like this, I have a lot of anxiety around not being able to be in two places at once, because sometimes we have 3 presentations that are really great. And so we decided to work with Louder Than 11 and put some real time and energy and resource into making sure that we do a good job of documenting this conference so that you and all your friends and all the myriad of people who do great work and for whatever reason couldn't make it here can also get this great content. So we're trying to make this content live on after this conference. So thanks you guys for that. And I want to, last but not least, the staff. These things are, these kinds of conferences are one of the most important things that we do at the Access Fund, giving back and trying to make volunteers more effective, but it also takes a whole lot of work. And I think they've done a fantastic job. We'll see in 2 days. But anyway, thank you, staff. So Joe's going to get a little bit more into the logistics. But on this, our 20th year of existence, I thought it'd be good to just reflect a little bit on some of the milestones that we've passed over the years and some of our shared accomplishments. So got a little 20 milestones for you. Yeah. So one of the first one is and Armando, our founder, is here. Armando Menical. Yeah, Armando in the house. He's still actively engaged, which is great. And anyway, if you get a chance to talk to him, please do so. If you don't know Armando, he's an amazing guy. But one of the first real decisions we made is not to get involved in ethical debates. And that doesn't mean we won't take ethical stands. We don't want people to go around gluing, chipping holes, or doing other things that destroy the resource. But back in the day, the whole sport climbing debate was broiling, and that was just this huge issue. And it's like, we're not going to choose a side. We can't control which direction the sport goes. We could try, but it wouldn't work. And so our job really is to make sure that we defend climbing in all its forms, and the forms that it takes on today and the forms that it may take on in the future, provided it doesn't destroy the resource or get places closed or impinge on other user groups. So that's something that was fundamental to the organization and continues today. Another thing we did early on was we broke away from the American Alpine Club. So we were actually a committee, the Axis Committee of the American Alpine Club, and for a myriad of reasons that of which I'm only partially aware of, we broke away. But it really boils down to a few things: is that there was a real need for a small, nimble, focused organization just to be focused on climbing access. And there was a lot of other things that the club was doing then, and the people in the committee realized that to build a grassroots network that they just needed to be really focused. And so that was a huge, obviously, part of who we are today. And we continue to have a great relationship with the club. That's okay. Up, back, there you go. Other arrow. Other one. There you go. Thank you. In 1990 and 91, we had some of our first acquisitions that we supported, and to this day, we still own property in Unaweep Canyon. You can go to the next slide. We've been involved in acquisitions in Gunks, Rumney, Castle Rock, Shelf Road, Farley Ledge, and have supported 41 acquisitions over the last 20 years, helping to conserve over 1,200 acres of land. And that's something that's, our approach to acquisitions has changed over the years. I'll get a little bit more into that later, but that's something that's fundamental to who we are. And so this is, that was Unaweep Canyon. We launched a grant program. We've given away 240 grants totaling over $900,000 over the last 20 years, and a lot of those are to support acquisitions. Anything from, $20,000 grants for acquisition, Laurel Knob acquisition in North Carolina, to $300 grants to file your 501c3, which if anyone's done that, you know how much fun that is. So it runs the whole gamut, and they're all really focused to, obviously, to keep climbing years open and to keep local organizations more effective. So next slide. Early on, we built a legacy of activism in Washington, D.C. So it turns out that, if you have a problem at a specific park or forest, it's good to work with the locals. It's also good to have a really good relationship with the boss's boss. And so we've been doing that for a while, and it's also the best way to be less reactive and more proactive, and to be able to advance a national policy agenda, obviously, is to go right to the top. So next slide. So there's Jason Keith and me doing our thing. And I had an opportunity this year to testify before Congress at an appropriations subcommittee on where should the money go, and what is not only the climbers but the human-powered outdoor recreation community, what do we have to say about that? So that was a big honor. And I went enough times this year that I had to buy a second suit so they didn't think I was a total dirtbag. So now I own 2 suits. Okay, next slide. Jim Angel, who I never got a chance to meet, Bill Strack. Whenever I mention this guy's name, anybody who was around this man has a reaction, and so I really feel like I missed out. But he was a passionate trail builder, and his energy and spirit and vision and crusade's a loaded word, but is with us today. And with our launch of the Access Fund Conservation Team is in some ways our attempt to try to recapture some of that energy in a new way, in a sustainable way that doesn't all revolve around just one character. But a great man, and I regret that I never got a chance to meet him. We have taken on the controversial topic of cultural resource protection. We were instrumental in brokering the deal at Devil's Tower, and obviously this is a really complex issue, very important to climbers, very important to a lot of people. It's a lot bigger than us, obviously. And Jason Keith is going to have a presentation on cultural resource issues along with other policy issues later. So if it's something that interests you, please go to that one. We have taken the lead on Climbing management to protect cliff nesting raptors. In the 90s, we produced a manual on climbing and raptors, for land managers, and it's on our bucket list to redo that manual. It needs some work. We've got Rob Ramey and Brian, I don't want to butcher your name, Postumus, are going to be presenting on this. And Rob's been doing some metadata research for us, just taking a look at what does the research really have to say about climbing and raptors, because there's a lot of research out there, not only in the United States, but in Europe as well. And so he's been working on pulling all that data together, and I think that's going to be really important for us. Okay. We've taken on the issue of fixed anchors in wilderness. In '97, many of you remember, the U.S. Forest Service issued a ban on fixed anchors in wilderness. And that obviously would have been devastating and could have set a precedent not only in the Forest Service but in the Park Service. And iconic resources like El Capitan, which people typically don't think of as a wilderness area, above a certain elevation, it's officially designated as wilderness. And so obviously, we don't support rampant sport climbing in wilderness, but we've always said that fixed anchors, including bolts, have to have a place wherever there's climbing activities take place. And so we were instrumental in the negotiated rulemaking, which kind of set up a framework for how the Forest Service would deal with fixed anchors in wilderness. It is not resolved. To this day, there is no official national policy, but it's safe to say that things are looking a lot brighter right now than they were in the late 90s. And this is something that, again, there'll be a policy workshop on this specific issue. Next one. So we've sued the federal government. We have, yeah. Yeah, so people tend to get kind of excited about this, and it's exciting, it's interesting. You should know we're 0 for 2. We lost both times. But I think it's really important that we have been and will be willing to take a stand on important issues and stand up to the agencies when we feel that it's appropriate. And we've shown them that we have the juice to do it, and we'll do it again. And so that's an important part of our work. It's not the only part of our work, certainly, but it's an important part of our work, and it means that people pay attention to us and take us seriously. So we can look at that as being successful in as much as it is part of who we are today. In 2000, we launched the Adopt a Craig program. As you know, this is the national stewardship movement that we help to organize. About 4,000 volunteers annually participate in this. And Mike Moran is going to do a presentation on how to organize one of these, so attend that one if you like. We've established best practices for management, for climbing management planning. So we've now in the second revision of a manual on, how do you, if you're a land manager, how do you manage this crazy activity? And so we're really, and this is a little bit related to the suing the federal government thing. We're really at our best when we are a resource to land managers. When we, land managers have a really tough job. There's so many different constituencies that they're answering to. I don't know of a single agency that's budget is bigger now than it was a few years ago. So we've got diminishing resources and probably more and more responsibilities every year. It's a really tough job. And our job is not to make that job harder. Our job is to help. Obviously we're going to advocate for climbers and make sure that we, as a relatively small constituency, among all the myriad of others, don't get brushed to the side, but we're at our best when we're seen as a resource and someone that you want at the table because it makes your job easier. And so that's a big way how we frame our work. We've advocated on recreation fees, and it doesn't mean that we're not against recreation fees at all, but our policy has always been that there shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to pay to play when playing really doesn't cost much, if anything, or if there's services that are being rendered that the community doesn't really want. We recently, next slide, did some, back. Okay. We recently took on, there was a proposal to increase the climbing fee on Denali from $200 to $500. And we didn't really get any heads up on that. There was no public process around that. So the American Alpine Club, the AMGA, and the Access Fund, we got together and said, okay, what are we going to do about this? And we did a lot. And including working with some of our friends in the Senate and elsewhere. And we, with our work, pushed the Park Service towards having a public process. So they actually got some input, and we got some input and took a look at what are the programs that this is funding, and what are the budgets that this money is going to go into. And the result was, instead of the $500 fee, it was $350 fee increase, which is good. I mean, this is rescuing people on this mountain is really hard and dangerous. And there's a lot of people that go up there with that expectation. And so realistically, the Park Service has to have a program up there. And we understand that, and that program's expensive. But we feel like the $350 fee is an appropriate fee given the size of the program. And so that's what our advocacy, it's one example of our advocacy on fees. Okay, next. We've been investing in the grassroots network of local climbing organizations ever since the very beginning, and we're happy to say that there's over 70 around the country, and it's the way that, as I said at the beginning, that our work is possible. A small staff in Boulder, Colorado just can't have a national footprint without local organizations and strong volunteers like all of you around the country. Rusty Bailey and Jesse Zacher will be doing several workshops. We'll have a few workshops that relate to how to make your LCO more effective, so thanks for doing that. This is a big one. In 2006, we were one of the founding members of the Outdoor Alliance. So for years, we would literally, we'd be walking the halls of Congress, and sometimes we'd literally pass the hikers and the mountain bikers in the hall. And sometimes we'd be advocating on the same issue, but on different sides of it. And it wasn't helping. The hunters, the fishermen, the horseback riders, certainly the off-highway vehicle people, were always very organized, or certainly have been in recent times, and we weren't. And so my predecessor and a number of other people had the vision to say, you know what, there could be a new voice at the table, the H-Porkers, we call ourselves in the house, the human-powered outdoor recreation community. And so we've gotten together, we got some funding from a few foundations, and we've got someone in Washington, D.C. half-time, and we have a national policy platform and we go together. So it's the Access Fund, the International Mountain Bicycling Association, American Hiking Society, American Whitewater, American Canoe, and Winter Wildlands, and the backcountry skiers. Thanks, Jason. We get together and we advocate together under the umbrella of the Outdoor Alliance. And so that's done a few things for us. One is I think we're doing a really good job of being the voice for human-powered outdoor recreation in Washington, D.C., because that voice really wasn't there before. And the other thing we found is that people take us more seriously on our climbing advocacy as well. When we're walking around saying that we're part of this alliance that represents 1 in 3 Americans, people pay attention, they take notes. More so than they did when we said we represent 2.3 million climbers. So it's going to be something that we continue hopefully to build on. Jason Keith has been instrumental in making that organization effective as well, so we can be really proud of that. We recently, next one. Oh, yeah, thank you. Launched the Teamworks initiative. This is leveraging the competitive spirit in youth climbing teams and gyms to try to get them to compete with each other on stewardship. So they rank up points based on how many service hours they log. And you know, as we look forward, one of the threats and also opportunities is all these young people in gyms. I'm sure you all, many of you maybe, have seen some examples of people who take the gym mentality into the outdoors. And these young kids are already climbing harder than I ever will in my life, but they really don't have a clue what they're doing other than executing the movements on the rock. And so we said, well, how can we be part of the solution there? And so this is one of the answers to that. And so Melanie Joyce and Trey will be doing a presentation on this. And so we want more of that. In 2009, we launched the first ever revolving loan program specifically focused on preserving climbing areas. So based loosely on the Trust for Public Land model, we've raised capital. We've got almost $900,000 now and growing of capital, $300,000 of which is out on loan right now. And we also have expertise with Joe Samatero. And the vision is basically with expertise and capital, we can preserve a lot more privately held climbing areas. So when a climbing area is threatened or comes up for sale, we can do a quick assessment, swoop in, make a zero to very low interest loan to either the local organization or, if need be, buy it ourselves, and then do local fundraising to backfill, pay back that loan, put it back in the fund, and then go do it again somewhere else. And it's working. Next slide. This is one of our projects, the Cloud Boulders in Rumbling Bald with the Carolina Climbers Coalition. And you know, we're actually acting as a bank, and we're giving out loans that no bank in the right mind would ever do. You know, this is like a ragtag group of climbers in North Carolina with no credit history. And they're great. They're paying back, you know, their loan, and they're thanking us every time they send us this huge check. I mean, it's not a normal bank and lendee relationship, obviously. Next slide. And this is the most complex project to date. This is Jailhouse, which is in California. It was one of these, you know, quasi-secret crags, privately held land. You could climb there, but you're not really supposed to talk about it. And certainly no guidebooks, no photos. Well, the landowners hit upon hard times, and we found out about it, and Joe worked hard on this one, and won't get into all the details, but basically we gave the landowners a $100,000 loan to help them kind of get out of their distress, secured by a $1.3 million property, so we were in good shape. And in exchange, we got a conservation and access easement for 70 acres of land, so permanent protection. Not just the climbing, but some waterfront as well, and a great project that's got conservation value as well as climbing value. And there's going to be a lot, I'm not going to list all the number of people, but we have a lot of land conservation expertise in the room and a number of presentations to attend if you want to learn more about how to do these sorts of things. 18, we have signed memorandums of understanding with all three major federal land management agencies, the BLM, the Forest Service, and the Park Service. And basically what that means is it acknowledges a relationship between us and the agency. These are non-binding things, but it formalizes some kind of a relation. We basically agree that we're going to work together. And that, you know, when it comes to climbing related stuff, we're all gonna work together to try to find solutions. Simple to understand, really hard to execute. The Park Service one took 6 years. And that's Jason Keith, so good job, Jason. We've recently become a member of the Land Trust Alliance, and what this basically means is we're gonna uphold best practices for land trust. We have holdings in Society Turn, Colorado, Golden Cliffs, next slide. So this is just right outside of where we are, North Table Mountain. We own that crag. Also, we have some holdings in Uweep Canyon, and we hold conservation easements at Jailhouse, and then this little crag in San Francisco called Hanley Rock that I just visited recently. But we're trying to make sure that we're doing, you know, and this involves stewardship funding. There's a myriad of things that as a, you know, to uphold the best practice as a land trust. And as more and more local organizations are holding land, it's really up to us to set the stage and to be a good example on how best to do this. And so we're trying to make sure our house is in order in that regard. Next slide. And yeah, we have to celebrate that we've grown into a pretty big organization. I mean, on the national scale, we're not that big of a nonprofit, but let's remember that 20 years ago, the staff and the board did something called The Call, and they would call Yvon Chouinard once a year. And they would say, Yvon, this is our vision, this is what we're going to do, and please fund us. And then he would write a $10,000 check, and that was really the business model. And but that got us through, and then we've slowly been building and building and building, and now we're a sustainable organization that's supported by industry and the climbing community. And you know, we've been around for 20 years, and things are looking up. Looks like we'll be here for another 20. And Hale asked me to just remind everybody, since I'm talking about it, that if you want to renew your membership, you can do so back there. We've got this really cool little card swiper on our iPad. You'll have a really fun time doing it. And if your membership is lapsed, go talk to Hale. And then I couldn't help myself. I had to put one more in because we just hit another, I think is probably going to be a milestone as we look back in time at some point. We're launching the Access Fund conservation team. It's actually, they're going to depart next week. And so where are the guys? Raise your hands. Got Jeff and Dave. These are professional trail builders, actually from just right around here. They're also climbers. And so in partnership with Jeep and a few other companies, you can go to the next slide. They're going to be on the road 10 months out of the year, doing trail work, actually doing the work themselves. They've been loading that trailer up with all kinds of goodies. That's like, they're like kids in a candy shop at McGunkin Hardware. And, but also consulting with local climbing organizations and land managers and training people on, best practices for how to build not only crags and trails, but also bouldering areas that can be sustainable over time. Because places are getting, as we know, loved to death. And specifically bouldering areas, I think a lot of bouldering areas are on track to hitting a level of impact at which land managers are just going to say, hey, we can't, something has to change. That's what happened to Waco Tanks a number of years ago, and it got closed and then reopened under the public use plan. A lot of people weren't happy with that. But anyway, we're trying to be more proactive with that. And so that's really the vision for this program, is being consultants and helping locals not, when they're doing Adopt a Crag, not just think about trash cleanups and 1 year out, but 5, 10, and even decades out. What is climbing going to look like, and what can we do now to make sure that it's sustainable in the future? So that's a little look back, last slide, on our last 20 years. And there's a lot of people in this room who are the reason, are responsible for a lot of those milestones. So again, I just want to thank everybody for all your contributions over the years and for coming to the conference. And I hope you have a great time, and I hope it's really productive. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joe Sambatero.
So I'll keep this short because I realize we're a little bit behind schedule already. But I just want to reiterate what Brady said and thank everyone for making this happen. Everyone from all the attendees, the volunteers, the staff, of course, to the presenters and panelists that have come out this far to share their expertise, and whether it's stewardship, policy, conservation, education, or land conservation. It wouldn't be possible without everyone here in the room today. So just, again, want to thank everyone. And hopefully you all have a folder, and in that folder you have the agenda. And in that you also have a sheet with bios and all the different presenters. So if you're ever wondering, who's up front talking right now, take a look at the bio sheet, learn a little bit about where we're all coming from. And you have some notes, and in the back you also have an evaluation form. And you could take notes on each workshop you attend and then turn those in tomorrow. So overall, I'm really excited to have this conference. This is the fourth one I've helped organize in the last 3 years. But we have some co-founders and some of the old guard that have been doing this since the early 90s in terms of organizing conferences. So it's been building up over the years, and I think this is probably the first time we've ever had concurrent workshops. And so the idea behind this was to get more people in the room, go beyond just the network of affiliates and regional coordinators, and invite people from all around the community across the country to come together, whether they just want to learn how to start and adopt a crag, or whether they want to get into the nitty-gritty about title and appraisals, or learn more about some of raptor management and other key policy issues. So hopefully, I think there's something for everyone in this room, and if we did the job right, it should be a hard decision to pick, but like Brady said, we'll be covering it. We'll have these available online as well, and looking forward to getting this kicked off. So I don't want to keep too much time up here, but a quick note is at the lunch hour, we'll have lunch here back in this room, but we'll also have during breaks and during lunch, Lara with Rest Stop will be out there. Cliff Bar has a refuel station, so if you don't get enough at lunch, you could always eat a lot of Cliff products and take some with you. Most importantly, there's a table with a Meet the Moment campaign. And you could write your moment, and it might be related to this conference, it might be related to something else you did really fun this last year. But basically the winner, there will be 2 winners, one today and one tomorrow we'll pick, and those 2 winners will walk away with a year-long supply of Cliff products. So keep taking notes right now if you have a good idea, and definitely encourage you to go back there. So with that, I think I just want to quickly mention, this is going to be the room for today for stewardship and education. Next room over is going to be local support and mobilization. And then the last room down the hall is going to be conservation and policy. So I wish I had time to give a quick intro for each and every one, but take a look at your agendas, ask around. And since we're a little short on time, we might go a little bit into the next break to give this first section of workshops close to an hour. And Brian?
Would you just say that one more time? Which is room A, B, and C?
This is room A. Room B is going to be local support and mobilization. Room C is going to be conservation and policy. So stay here if you want to learn about the fundamentals of trail planning, design and construction with Mark Hess of Rocky Mountain Field Institute. Becky Hall will be in the far room talking about Acquisition 101 and some of the key details if you just want to start to learn about acquisition work, conservation work. And then right next door, Rusty Bailey, who started Prescott Climbers Coalition and Kootenai Climbers Coalition, will be talking about some of the basics, just starting up an LCO at the grassroots level. So that's going to kick us off. And if you guys have any questions, I know there's a handful of staff in the room. Staff, raise your hand. You find us and some other folks if you need assistance with anything. So with that, any more questions? Anything I didn't cover from the back? Let's go have some fun, and thank you all for coming, guys.